December 29, 2025, the sky above the Taiwan Strait lights up not with celebration, but with rockets and warplanes. The sea ripples beneath warships as China's People's Liberation Army mobilizes its forces, surrounding the island of Taiwan in an unprecedented show of military might. For the first time in decades, the threat of conflict in one of the world's most strategically vital regions suddenly feels closer than ever. This is not fiction, not a scene from a future war. This is today's breaking reality. Before we go further, here's what you need to understand. This situation affects global peace, international trade, technology supply chains, and the safety of millions of civilians. If you care about world stability, economic security, or simply the lives of people living in this region, stay with this story to the end. Because what unfolds beyond this strait could shape the future for us all. So, what exactly happened? In late December 2025, China launched what its military called Justice Mission 2025A, two-day series of large-scale live-fire military drills around Taiwan, the most expansive of its kind in recent years. These exercises included warships navigating waters around the island, fighter jets and bombers flying in patterns close to Taiwan's defense identification zone, rockets and missiles fired into seas north and south of the island, and even simulated blockades of key ports. China's Eastern Theater Command stated the purpose was to deliver a stern warning, especially to what it labels Taiwan independence forces and external interference. From Taiwan's perspective, these drills were seen as anything but routine. Taipei's government called them provocative acts that undermine peace and stability in the region. Taiwan's defense forces were placed on high alert, monitoring every movement and preparing rapid response measures. Coast Guard vessels were deployed to track naval activity. Air defenses were readied. And, crucially, civil aviation routes had to be adjusted as the military activity affected both domestic and international flights, bringing the tension directly into civilian life. Now, why does this matter so much? This wasn't just a small training event. Reporters and analysts noted several features that raised global attention. First, rockets were fired near Taiwan's waters closer than in previous drills. Second, naval and air units completely encircled the island, simulating scenarios like a full-scale blockade. And third, China's state media and military spokespeople openly framed it as a deterrence, not only to Taiwan, but also to foreign powers involved in the region. Some analysts even describe these drills as part of a long-term trend of China increasing pressure, blurring the line between routine exercises and preparations for actual operations. So, why did China do this? Officially, Beijing insists the drills serve several strategic goals. The primary goal is deterring what it sees as Taiwan independence movements. It's also sending a clear message to external powers, especially nations that supply weapons or offer diplomatic support to Taiwan. Finally, it's a powerful demonstration of its own military capabilities in the region. Beijing's leadership frames Taiwan as an inseparable part of China and views military pressure as a legitimate defense of its territorial claims. To truly understand today's tension, we have to travel back through history. After the Chinese Civil War ended in 1949, the defeated nationalist government of the Republic of China retreated to Taiwan, while the Communist Party established control on the mainland. Since then, Taiwan and China have existed under separate governments, but China has never renounced its claim over the island. Over the decades, there have been multiple crises in the Taiwan Strait. The first Taiwan Strait crisis, in 1954-55, saw artillery battles over offshore islands. The second Taiwan Strait crisis in 1958 involved intense bombardments and high tensions. Each of these events ended without a full-scale war, but they helped define the fragile status quo that exists between Beijing and Taipei today. So, what makes these recent drills different? Compared to previous exercises, Justice Mission 2025 stands out for a few reasons. It involved more troops, vessels, aircraft, and live-fire elements than most prior drills. A blockade scenario was explicitly included, rehearsing how to cut Taiwan's access by sea and air a major escalation. And most importantly, China publicly framed it as a deterrent not only to Taiwan but to any global involvement. These elements suggest a shift from routine training to a much more serious strategic message, both militarily and politically. While much of this tension plays out in military terms, ordinary people feel the effects too. Airlines had to reroute flights to avoid the exercise zones. Taiwan's civil aviation authorities warned of delays and cancellations. Civilians living in coastal areas watched rockets and jets in the sky with growing concern. This is how international tensions become a stark reality in the daily lives of ordinary citizens, fishermen, travelers, and business owners, all watching an unfolding event with global stakes. Of course, the world was watching. Governments and regional powers reacted in varying tones. The United States and its Quad partners, Japan, India, and Australia held diplomatic meetings emphasizing a free and open Pacific and stressing the need for peace and stability. Australia called the exercises deeply concerning and destabilizing. Many world leaders echoed similar messages, urging restraint, diplomacy, and dialogue, not escalation. So, what comes next? After these drills, Taiwan remains on high alert even as Chinese vessels and aircraft gradually withdraw. Analysts believe China is signaling that its next steps, if its political goals aren't met, could involve even larger operations in the coming years. For Taiwan, the emphasis remains on defense readiness and maintaining its democratic self-governance. For the rest of the world, this standoff is a sobering reminder of the delicate balance that defines modern geopolitics. What began as military drills has become a flashpoint watched across the globe. In the span of just a few hours, the skies and seas around Taiwan became arenas of strategic signaling, historical conflict, and global concern. Yet one truth remains: peace here fragile, as it is, matters not just to Taiwan and China, but to every nation connected to the prosperity, security, and stability of the 21st century. The war has not yet begun. But across the Taiwan Strait, every movement now feels like the final rehearsal. What was once distant geopolitics has turned into a daily military choreography: fighter jets crossing invisible lines, warships sailing closer than ever before, missiles rolling out of underground bases, and satellites silently watching from space. This is not some future scenario. This is now. In recent years, China's military activities around Taiwan have shifted from occasional demonstrations to routine operations. According to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, Chinese military aircraft and naval vessels are detected almost every day. These are not symbolic flybys. They include fighter jets, bombers, drones, surveillance planes, and entire naval task groups. The message is subtle but unmistakable. China is showing that it can encircle Taiwan at will. Chinese aircraft now regularly enter Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, a buffer area meant to provide early warning. While entering the ADIZ is not a violation of airspace, the frequency and scale of these flights are unprecedented. At times, dozens of aircraft appear within hours. Each detection forces Taiwan's Air Force to scramble jets, activate air defense systems, and issue radio warnings. Every single response consumes fuel, manpower, and resources. This is not an accident. Military analysts describe it as strategic exhaustion, wearing down Taiwan's defenses without firing a single shot. China describes these actions as training exercises, but the design of these drills tells a much deeper story. In multiple large-scale exercises, Chinese forces have practiced joint air and naval blockades, missile strikes on simulated targets, and amphibious landings. They've rehearsed long-range precision attacks and even electronic warfare and cyber operations. State media footage often shows missile launches, aircraft carrier operations, and troops storming mock urban environments. Some exercises simulate cutting Taiwan off from the outside world. Others focus on precision strikes against key infrastructure. Military experts note that these drills increasingly resemble full-spectrum combat scenarios, not just defensive training. All the while, China's leadership repeats a consistent line: reunification is inevitable. So, how does Taiwan respond? It doesn't match China's ship for ship or jet for jet. It can't. Instead, Taiwan has reshaped its defense strategy around one core idea: deterrence through resilience. Rather than attempting to defeat China outright, Taiwan focuses on making any invasion costly, complex, and prolonged. This includes mobile missile systems that are difficult to target, hardened underground bases, and rapid deployment units. It involves coastal defense weapons, anti-landing obstacles, and sophisticated cyber defense and intelligence coordination. Taiwan has also reformed its military training programs, extended conscription periods, and increased its civil defense preparedness. Government campaigns now encourage civilians to understand emergency shelters, evacuation routes, and disaster response procedures. This isn't panic, it's preparation. Of course, no discussion of Taiwan is complete without the United States. Washington's policy has long been defined by strategic ambiguity, a deliberate refusal to clearly state whether the U.S. would militarily defend Taiwan. The goal has always been to strike a balance, deter China from attacking, while also discouraging Taiwan from declaring formal independence. But as tensions rise, that ambiguity itself becomes fragile. The U.S. continues to sell defensive weapons to Taiwan, conducts freedom of navigation operations in the region, and maintains a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific. American officials regularly emphasize the need for peace and stability, while warning against any unilateral changes to the status quo. At the same time, U.S. military planners openly acknowledge that any conflict over Taiwan would be extremely complex, costly, and have a global impact, and other regional powers are watching closely. Taiwan is not isolated. Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia all monitor the situation with intense focus. Japan, in particular, has stated that stability in the Taiwan Strait is directly linked to its own national security. Japan's southern islands lie very close to Taiwan, and key shipping routes pass through the region. Any conflict would immediately affect global trade, energy supplies, and regional security alliances. As a result, joint military exercises, intelligence sharing, and diplomatic coordination across the Indo-Pacific have all intensified. This isn't escalation for show, it's contingency planning. This brings us to a fundamental question. Why does Taiwan matter so much to the rest of the world? The answer is layered. First, Taiwan sits at a strategic crossroads of major sea lanes through which a huge percentage of global trade passes. Second, Taiwan plays a critical role in the global technology supply chain, particularly in advanced semiconductor manufacturing. The modern cars we drive, the smartphones in our pockets, the medical equipment in our hospitals, and our defense systems all depend on chips produced there. A major disruption would send shockwaves across the entire global economy. And third, Taiwan represents a political and ideological contrast. Its democratic system stands apart from mainland China's governance model. For some, this is about sovereignty. For others, it is about precedent. Beyond the ships and missiles, another battle is already underway: the information war. Both sides carefully manage their narratives and messaging. China emphasizes historical claims, national unity, and sovereignty. Taiwan emphasizes democracy, self-governance, and the will of its people. Social media, state broadcasters, and diplomatic statements all play a role in shaping global perception. Disinformation campaigns, cyber intrusions, and psychological pressure are all part of modern conflict, even before a single shot is fired. History shows us that wars don't always begin with grand declarations. Sometimes they begin with a simple miscalculation. A collision at sea, a misread radar signal, a moment where restraint fails. Military aircraft now operate closer than ever. Naval vessels maneuver in tight spaces. The windows for making decisions are shrinking to mere seconds. Every exercise tests not just hardware, but human judgment. This is why global leaders repeatedly emphasize the need for crisis management, communication hotlines, and diplomacy. Because when tensions are this high, silence becomes incredibly dangerous. So, what comes next? There is no confirmed timeline, no official countdown, no declared intention to launch an invasion. What exists instead is uncertainty. But analysts all agree on one thing: any move regarding Taiwan would be among the most consequential decisions of the 21st century. The costs, human, economic, and political, would be immense. And that reality, for now, remains a powerful deterrent. As night falls over the Taiwan Strait, radar screens glow. Pilots remain on standby. Ships patrol silently. Satellites continue their endless orbits. In Taiwan cities, life goes on. Markets open, schools run, and people commute to work. But beneath this surface of normalcy lies a deep awareness. This peace is conditional, and the world is watching. The question is no longer if tensions exist. The question is how long restraint can hold when power, pride, and history converge in one narrow stretch of water. Because in this region of the world, silence does not always mean calm. Sometimes it just means the storm is deciding when to break. Thank you for watching. If you found this explanation helpful, consider subscribing for more in-depth reports on global events.